All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you being on. Sherry, good morning. Checking the comments here. If you are on with us, drop a comment in. Let me know you're there, whether you're on Facebook or StreamYard. Either way, drop a comment. Let me know you're there. Appreciate everybody being on. Appreciate everybody being on yesterday on the company meeting. So today we are going to dive into mastering price adjustments. A lot of the content we talked about yesterday on the brokerage meeting was around the fact that we're seeing price adjustments climb, meaning more people are having to adjust the price from their original list price in order to get it to a price that will cause it to sell, meaning in order to get an offer, a lot of people are having to adjust the sale price, the list price. Now, with that said, good morning, Scott. Thanks for being on. Good morning, Rhonda. Welcome. Rhonda, newest member of Network Global. So thanks for being on, Rhonda. Sheila, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being on. So price adjustments. I checked the MLS this morning. There was 878 price adjustments in the last 7 days. That number is climbing. We know that over the last couple of years, we haven't really had to worry too much about adjusting the price because, as we talked about yesterday in the company meeting, everything was selling. Right? We were in such a strong seller's market, and we still are today, but interest rates are higher. So because interest rates are higher, buyers have certainly become a little bit more picky in what they want. We're seeing inspections come back. We're seeing homes that have to be in really good condition, priced really well in order to sell. So we have to start getting good at what do we do if we list a property and it's not sold in the first 10 to 14 days? What do we do? Now, there are some agents that might have gotten into this business in 2020, 2021, 2022, and they may not have had to service a listing for 30 or 60 days. Right? We look back at 2008, 2009, 2010, when we were at 12, 13, 14 months of inventory, very strong buyer's market, where it was very common for a house to sit for 4 or 5, sometimes 6 months before it sold because there was that much inventory in the market. So we got to make sure we get good at having these conversations. So let's look at a couple of things real quick. Let me flip my slide here. First is this. Now, if you've looked at any of our listing presentation videos that we offer and the listing presentation itself, you know that I'm a big fan of talking price. We know there are 3 things that get a home sold. One is price. The second is the way the property shows. And the third is marketing. Now, of the 3, the absolute most important is price. Because I could have a home in a terrible location and it shows really poorly, but if it's priced super, super aggressive, someone's going to see enough value in it to buy it. On the flip side, if I have a fantastic property with a fantastic location and I'm priced 20, 30, 40, 50% over market value, that home is going to sit. People are going to say, fantastic house, we love it, price too high. So pricing is the key when it comes to getting homes sold. It's price. Price is the absolute most important thing that will get a property sold. So when we have our listing presentation and we're talking to our seller, one of the first slides I bring out is I thank them for allowing me to come out and see their home. And then I say, there are 3 things to get a home sold. The first is price. Now, in my experience, and I've sold a lot of homes in my career, I know my marketing works. What we are ultimately testing now is price. And in my experience, I know that if we're priced correctly in this market, because we are still in a very strong seller's market, we should be receiving offers pretty quick within the first few days. Now, if we're getting a lot of activity, meaning we're getting a lot of people coming to see your home, a lot of showings, and no one's making offers, we're most likely 4 to 6% off on price. Now, if we're getting a high amount, let's say, of internet activity, we're getting people viewing the home, looking at it online, but a very low number of showings, that means that people are rejecting our listing. Let's say we only get 1 or 2 showings in the first 7, 10, 14 days. We're getting the low showings. That means we're 6 to 12% off on price. And let's say no one's coming to see the property. Well, then we're 12% or more on price. We've really missed the mark. So I want you to keep these numbers in mind, and I want you to think about right now, if you have a listing on the market and it's not selling, where does your listing fit in this criteria that's listed here? So if you have a house on the market right now and it's not selling, is it 4 to 6%? Are you getting a lot of activity and no offers? And would a 4 to 6% adjustment potentially get the property sold? If you've been on for 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month, and you've only had 1, 2, 3, 4 showings, maybe, that would be considered low showings. I consider low showings about 1 a week in the market that we're in. If we're getting more than that, I'm considering that a good amount of showings. But if I'm only getting about 1 showing a week, I think that's considered low. And if no one's coming to see it, did I really miss the mark on pricing? So, and if so, I need to go have a conversation with my sellers now in order to get the price down to a price that will cause it to sell. So take a mental note of this, take a picture. We've got this posted all over networkglobalagents.com under the listing section. You'll see this in the listing presentations and the videos. You'll see this slide a lot, but I think it's a very important slide, and I'd like to keep it as a visual when I'm talking to sellers, because I think it's one thing to say it to somebody. If we're priced right, we're going to get offers. If we're getting showings and no offers, we're 4 to 6% off. If we're getting low showings, 6 to 12. If we're getting drive-bys only, 12% or greater. That's going to go right over their head. It's going to go one in the ear and out the other. So having a visual, I think, is super powerful. And now when I do my listing presentation as well, I'm talking about this in the beginning, when I'm talking about the 3 things that sell a home, one being price. And then when I get into pricing in my presentation, after I go through all the marketing I'm going to do, and I shift into pricing, then I bring this slide up again. And why do I bring this slide up again? Because I want this to really sink in that it's price. We're testing price. Everybody on this call knows how to sell homes, right? But everybody on this call cannot sell a house that's overpriced. And I've heard the analogy in the past, and I like it. I could get the Goodyear blimp to spotlight a home 24/7 to market that property, so everyone knows about it. But if it's overpriced, all I'm doing is marketing an overpriced listing. So ultimately, it's price. So I like to make sure that this is very clear when I'm talking to sellers initially on the presentation that we're testing price. And so here's a couple of things we need to do. Now, let's just say we have to have that conversation with our seller to get a price adjustment. Rule of thumb, if you have got now this is going to vary a little bit, but if you have what I'll call like a very traditional type home in a subdivision where days on market is 30 or less, but it's a home that sells, that homes move in the area, normal, I'm looking at making an adjustment in the first 10 to 14 days. Now, if I've got like a special property where, I don't know, maybe it's super unique or historical or something of that nature, where I know it's just gonna, or it's a very, very high price point, it's $7, $8, $10 million price, something of that nature. I know that my buyer pool is going to be smaller, my buyer pool is going to be a little bit different, so I need to adjust for that. But let's just say, for conversation's sake, we're talking about right now homes that are like your traditional type homes that people buy in the St. Louis, St. Charles, Jefferson County areas. So what am I using to get a price adjustment? So call it 10 to 14 days. If my home's not sold, I'm talking about having an adjustment conversation with my client. Now, what I don't want to do is just call them and say, hey, we need to drop the price. I need to have some things to support the conversation. One, I set the stage early on in my listing presentation that if we're not under contract in 10 to 14 days, well, we're going to be having a conversation about, price. So they know it's coming and it's not just a surprise. But the first thing I'm looking at is the feedback from showing time. Now, what I would say is that if you're getting ready to have a price adjustment conversation with your seller and you've had showings on the listing and you have not gotten feedback, go get feedback first before you have this conversation. Very, very, very important, because what's going to happen if you call and say, hey, it's time, I think, to drop the price, then you say, well, what's the feedback been from that last showing we had yesterday? Or what about the showing today? Or what about the last 5 showings? We haven't gotten any feedback. Get the feedback. Feedback's extremely important. Also, make sure the feedback you're getting is good, detailed feedback. It's not just like, nice house, thanks for letting us show, not interested. That does not help us. So when I get feedback like that, because we all know Showing Time sends out the showing request for feedback automatically. When I get a feedback request that's not detailed, that just says, not interested, thanks for letting us show, that doesn't help me. So I'm calling those agents and I'm asking them a couple of questions. One, appreciate you taking the time to show my listing. Out of curiosity, I see they're not interested. Is there anything we could do to make this home number 1 on their list? I'm going to ask that question every time. Is there anything we can do? No, they decided to go to a different school district. They don't want the school district. Well, I can't do anything about that. That's not really an objection. That's more of a condition, if you will. They decided on a different school district. I can't move the house. But what if they say, well, and I've had this happen in the past. They said, well, they like the house, but they're concerned the carpet's dated, it needs to be replaced. I said, okay, well, what if we offered a carpet allowance to replace the carpet? Oh yeah, I think that might work. And we pulled the deal together. Something as silly and small as that. Sometimes agents just don't get creative and think about things. So I called the seller and said, hey, if we offer I can't remember, $5,000 or $6,000 carpet allowance, we could probably get this deal done. And we made the deal work. So something as simple as that. So I'm always calling to get feedback, especially if the feedback's vague, and asking, is there anything we can do to make the home number one on their list? And sometimes it's condition based, where it's like, no, they decided to not look in this county anymore, not look in this school district, or whatever the case may be, fine. Or they decided it's too far. We've had that happen with the listing recently, where it's out there a ways, and they're saying that the husband's work is 57 minutes away. He loves the area, they love the house, but he doesn't want to make that commute to and from work every day. I get it. All right, not a whole lot we can do there. But make sure you get detailed feedback on every single showing that you have. Also, make sure you're telling your clients you're working on getting feedback. Because when you get showings, don't let them call you and say, hey, what's the feedback been from that showing yesterday? If you're working on getting feedback and haven't received it yet, stay proactive. Let them know, hey, I'm working on feedback. I've got calls, emails, and text into the agent. I'll let you know as soon as I get feedback. Keep your clients up to date. Very important. Now, the next thing I'm looking at is hit counters. In the MLS, you can go under your listing and look at the hit counters. I want to see how much activity I'm getting. Am I getting lots of views online? Am I getting people that are looking at it online? Are my views up, or do I have an abundant amount of views or a tiny amount of views? I want to look at that. I also want to be looking at recent comparables. I want to know what's going on in their area before I make a phone call to them to get a price adjustment, because the last thing you want to do is make a phone call and say, hey, yeah, I think it's time, we've been on the market 14 days. I think it's time to have make a price adjustment. And they say, well, yeah, what about that house that just hit the market yesterday down the street? And you say, what house? Right? Because you didn't know. Now that's going to send an immediate signal to your client that you don't know what's going on in their area. So make sure you do an MLS search and look at comparables in the area. Or let's say, yeah, we saw that one down the street, got a price reduction, or it went under contract and you didn't know about it. Make sure that you do comparable searches before you make price adjustment calls. Pull their subdivision, pull their zip code, pull their area, look around the area and look and make sure what's going on. Is something coming soon now that wasn't there yesterday or 2 days ago? Did something go pending? Did something have a price adjustment? Did a property close that was pending? Did it now close? And you can see what the price was it closed at. That's important. Sellers want to know that. So make sure you know what's going on there. Also, motivation. Touched on this a little bit yesterday, but make sure you know what their motivation is. Where are they moving? Why are they moving? How soon do they want to be moved? Make sure you know their motivation. It's very important. Reverse prospecting. If you haven't utilized reverse prospecting, it's a free tool in our MLS. There is a video on networkglobalagents.com under the listing section on how to use reverse prospecting. In my opinion, it's a very effective tool and resource, and it's extremely underutilized. Go in and reverse prospect your listings. You will see an uptick in showing activity. Reverse prospecting in a nutshell is basically agents that have set their clients up at the home search, and that home search matches the criteria of the listing of the property you have listed. So if now you have access to all of these agents who potentially have buyers, why would you not want to get your listing in front of them? Go in there, start clicking through the agents' names, email them, pick up the phone and call them. I see you have a client that might be a good fit for my listing in Darting Prairie. I sent you an email on it. Do you intend to set up a showing to come see it? Or if they save it as a favorite, send the email, call, pick up the phone. I see your client just saved my listing in Darting Prairie as a favorite. When do you intend to come see the property? Did you get the email I sent? Be proactive. Very important that we're proactive. So utilize reverse prospecting. Go watch the video on that, networkglobalagents.com under the listing section. And then look at hits on Zillow as well. Why do we look at hits on Zillow? Not because they're accurate, because I don't think they're real, but your clients are looking at them. All right, so sometimes your hits on Zillow are just a crazy amount of hits and a crazy amount of people that have saved it. And it's just personal opinion. Like, I don't think there's that many buyers out there that could have saved this listing, but whatever. Clients look at it. I had a listing not too long ago, and the lady was super excited when it was in coming soon status because of all the people that saved the property. So make sure you're looking at the hit counter on Zillow as well, because your clients are definitely looking at it. It's the same reason when we talk about pricing homes, why we use the Zestimate in our pricing model. We don't use the Zestimate in our pricing model because it's accurate. It's got a 1 in 5 confidence score from that Zillow admits to. Its confidence is 1 out of 5. It's not very good, but we give it some validity because the general public looks at it. So definitely use Zillow. So these are the things I highly recommend that we look at when we're using to get a price, when we're getting a price adjustment. Now, let's look at some best practices for getting a price adjustment. First thing, I would be updating my clients every 7 days. And I like to use Mondays as a day to give my clients an update. Why do I like to use Mondays? Because chances are maybe we've done an open house. Maybe we've had some showings over the weekend. Motivation with sellers tends to be at a low after the weekend because they're going into the weekend thinking the house is going to sell. Well, we've got the open house. Let's keep the price where it's at. And let's do the open house and let's see how it goes. Monday is a fantastic day to call and update your sellers to get a price adjustment. You've had showings over the weekend. You maybe did an open house. You had people come through. There are no offers. Now it's Monday. Reality is set in. The house isn't sold. Yeah, let's go ahead and make an adjustment. So Mondays, in my opinion, and from past experience and from current, is that do price adjustment conversations on Monday. It's the best day to do it. Now, if you have comments on this as well, drop them in. Always have the MLS up when you're calling them. Always. Don't do this from the car. Don't do this when bouncing through appointments. Don't do this when you're out running errands. If they call you, here's the other thing. You want to be proactive. You don't want to be reactive. So you don't want them calling you and asking you, what should we do? The house hasn't sold. That's why I always say set this stuff in place, put it on your calendar, do price adjustment calls on Monday. Every 7 days, I'm calling my sellers with updates. So always have the MLS up when you're calling them so you sound educated about the other homes that have sold in their neighborhood, as I've touched on already, and be prepared to explain why any homes in their neighborhood may have been chosen by a buyer over theirs. Let's say you're in a subdivision right now and there's 2 other homes for sale and those both go pending. Why did they choose those? All right, so I'm going to find that out. What happened? Was it priced better? Did it have a finished lower level? Did it have better finishes? Did it have a better yard? Did it have a pool? Whatever the case may be, I want to know everything about the homes that my home is competing against. So if I'm up for sale right now, I am in a competition with any other homes for sale in the subdivision or in the area. It's my job to know everything about those properties so I can educate my clients on that. Now, here's another thought. We used to do this a lot before e-signatures. Remember the days of where my old school agents at? When I'm dating myself here, but fax machines. Who remembers fax machines? There was no e-signature, and a lot of people didn't have fax machines in their house. So what did we do? We drove to their house and got documents signed. Happened all the time. But if your listing is expiring or you need a reduction, but they won't do it, go see them. Go have a face-to-face conversation with them. It's very, very, very powerful. I highly recommend this. If we need to get an adjustment or a reduction, have a face-to-face conversation. Go sit at their house. Go talk to them. I understand it takes time. I understand it's not the most convenient thing. I understand it's easier just to do this stuff through text. But if you want to be an effective agent, an agent that cares, an agent that's building clients for life, go see them face-to-face. Go sit down with them. Pull the data, have it with you, have a conversation with them. It shows them that you care. This is the old saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Go show them that you care. It's important that you help them achieve their goal to get moved to the next place, right? It's important that you help them get moved to be closer to the grandkids or whatever the case may be. But a face-to-face conversation, we used to do a lot of these, mainly not because I wanted to, but because we had to, just because there was no way to get signatures without doing a face-to-face. So lots of face-to-face interaction back in the day. It's definitely a slower process, but it was effective. You build better rapport with people, you build more trust, you build better relationships. So just think about that. If you've got something sitting right now, let's say they're a little headstrong or wanting to drop, or go have a face-to-face with them. Maybe you're nervous to make the call. Go schedule a face-to-face with them. It might even be a little more nerve-wracking, but I promise you it will go over better. Face-to-face is very powerful. Now, when the market starts to shift, it's just as important to look at actives. So keep this in mind as well. Of course, we're always looking at solds, but it's just as important to look at actives. They are just as important as the solds. And the reason is because a home that sold in the spring may not get the same price today. So you have to be the best priced home currently on the market in the area, and you'll be the next to sell. So keep that in mind. Actives are showing us where the market is going. Now, of course, there could be some actives that are priced significantly high that are never going to sell because they're just way overpriced. But a lot of times actives can show us where is the market going. So make sure you're looking at your active properties as well. Very important. In addition to my pending solds, I want to be looking at actives. I also, again, want to keep up with what's going on in the area. Has anything new hit the market or coming soon? I need to know that as a listing agent. And I need to be able to not have my clients catch me off guard because they knew it and I didn't. So very important. Now, price adjustment time. Let's look at this. Turn down a reduction if you can't get at least 5 to 10% off of the price. So I know some people might be like, why? Well, that seems crazy. If I can get a price adjustment, even if it's small, why not? Well, there's no point in taking a listing from 219.9 to 214.9. Like a 1-2% adjustment. It won't change a thing in traffic and no one will notice it. I believe in that. Now, some people will say any adjustment's good. I disagree. Now, I've seen adjustments too, where people adjust like $100. Like that's, in my opinion, sending a complete wrong signal to the market. It's showing that the seller isn't serious. Homes have been sitting on the market 30 days and they adjust by $100. It's a huge turnoff. Huge turnoff. It's going to show the seller's not serious. It's going to show the seller may potentially be difficult to work with. Right? So think about that. If you can't get at least 5%, it might not be worth adjusting. Now, 1%, right? There's an old script. It's like, when's the last time you saw in the newspaper a 1% sale and got excited about it? It just doesn't happen. So we're looking at 5% minimum, and that's if we're getting good activity. If we're getting good activity, we need to be looking at a 5% adjustment. Now, I often find too that talking in percentages works better than dollar signs. If I'm sitting there and saying on a 500K house and I'm saying we need to drop it $25,000, that might be a little bit bigger sticker shock to a seller than if I say, well, look, we really, in my experience, I know that we're getting a lot of activity. My marketing is working because we're getting people in to see your home. What's happening though is they're rejecting the price. So in my experience, what I know is that in this situation, because we're getting good activity and no offers, we're 5% off at price. How do you feel about making a 5% adjustment so we can get your home to a price that will cause it to sell? Now, a little bit easier when I'm talking percentages rather than, or if I say 10%, it's a 50K drop, right? It's a little bit easier talking percentages rather than dollars. So think about that too in your conversation. We're going to go through some scripts here, but it won't change a thing in traffic. If I do a 1% adjustment, they're absolutely right. It's not going to change anything. So be thinking about that when you're having your adjustment. Now, when talking with sellers, always have feedback and showing activity in front of you. You never want to sound clueless when they ask you about a recent showing. And you need to be able to share consistency in the feedback. Remember, no feedback means they didn't see enough value to write an offer. So always, and then I'm going to go through a script here in a moment. Feedback. Talked on it already, but I'll just reiterate real quick. Very important. Make sure you have feedback on every single showing. And I understand it can be difficult. There are agents that just don't give feedback. That's also why I will say too, that if you're an agent or a newer agent that's new to this, make sure you always give feedback when you show a property. Make sure you give good detailed feedback. If I'm going on a house and I'm going to show 6 or 7 houses, I'm not going to remember what the first house looked like by the time I get to the 7th house. So make sure that you're taking notes on the property so that even if they don't like the house, just make sure you give good feedback. I think in a lot of ways it's a professional courtesy, and it helps elevate our industry as well, because we all know it's a pain in the butt to go track down feedback from agents. So let's just make sure we're giving good detailed feedback and not leaving just the blah, blah, thanks for letting me show, overpriced. All right, doesn't help an agent much. So that's just my little my personal belief is make sure you give good feedback. And in turn, hopefully more agents will start giving good feedback to us. But make sure you've got the feedback. Very, very important. So there's the always use the 2 ways to increase value script. So here we go. Let's dive into a little bit of scripting. 2 ways to increase value script. To be the most desired home in your neighborhood, you either need to have the same features and benefits and lower the price, or improve your features and benefits, meaning improve the conditions and keep the price the same. So let's talk through that for a moment. I either need to be the most valuable to increase value. There are 2 things I can do. I either need to have fantastic features and benefits compared to the next home, but my price needs to be lower, which now is raising my value because I'm in a better price point now. I'm showing that there's more value. Or I need to go improve my house potentially to get it to par with the rest of the homes, but I also need to keep the price the same. So we need to be looking at that. Now, sometimes people say, well, I want to go and improve a bunch of stuff, I'm going to go renovate my house, and then we're going to ask significantly more for the house. In my experience, when sellers tell me that they're going to do updates to a house, if I go on a listing appointment and a seller says, well, we're going to update the kitchen, we're going to update the bathrooms, we're going to finish the basement, we're going to do all of these things to get it ready to sell, I typically advise them not to do that if they're not experienced in renovating homes. Because what happens is, now if there's somebody that flips homes and they've got contractors and they know what to do, go for it. But if you go meet a seller and they've lived in their home, say 15 years or however many years, and they've never renovated a house, they've never done any significant renovation, and they tell you they want to get top dollar for their house, so they're going to update the kitchen now. They're going to gut the kitchen, they're going to put new cabinets in, new counters, new backsplash, paint, new flooring, new lighting, all of this. I tend to advise people not to do that if they don't know what they're doing, because if you've never flipped a house before, you have no idea the challenges you potentially face. And the challenges are, maybe a contractor doesn't show up. Maybe a contractor runs off with down payment money. Maybe the project takes way longer than you thought. Maybe as you get into it, you start running into more issues. Maybe as you get into it, you start to over improve, and now your $30,000 budget became $70,000 budget. So this is just, again, off topic here, but if you have people that want to renovate their house to be able to increase the price, I advise against it a lot, because sellers just don't know what they're doing. Unless they're in the industry of flipping houses and renovating houses, or they're in the construction industry and they know what they're doing and they do it a lot, totally different story. For your average homeowner, though, that's got to go find contractors and try to figure this thing out. It tends to not work really well. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about the initiating the price reduction conversation. So here we go. This is if I'm going to be on the phone or in person, but let's just say right now I'm going in person on this one. So thanks for meeting with me. It shows you're also, or thanks for taking the time to talk with me, either way. It also shows me you're concerned that your home is not sold. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be with you? They're going to say 10, of course. Great, because other agents might price a home too high to get or keep a listing, but my job is to get your home sold for the best price possible and protect your best interest. Is that fair? Yes, it is. Fantastic. So far we've had 862 views online. That's 17 showings and no offers to date. Now, according to the National Association of Realtors, and you can say that or in your experience, I used to use the NAR stats, which are very similar. Now I just use stuff in my experience because I've sold enough homes. We know that listings that have a low amount of showings, a home's price is 10% too high on average. Similarly, when we're getting showings but no offers, a home's price is 5% too high on average. So you're getting the views and you're getting the showings, and we're not getting the offers. So we know price is the problem. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. So my screen just went blank. What happened? Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, screen went blank. So think about that. We're going back to that very first slide I talked about. We're reiterating those numbers and bringing them in now to bring them back to those numbers. So again, I've talked about the pricing numbers on my listing presentation. I talked about the numbers again on the presentation when I got into pricing, and now I'm bringing them up again now that we're having to have a price conversation. So here's what I want to do next. I want to rediscover the motivation for them selling. So I'm going to go into, it appears the market is rejecting our price. So tell me, is it still your intention to get moved to Florida to be closer to the grandkids? That seems to be my go-to motivation all the time. Insert their motivation. So again, make sure you know what their motivation is. Why are they selling? Get into a better school district, get closer to the grandkids, get moved to the Ozarks, get moved to a different state, whatever the case may be, insert their motivation. Don't you think we should do something about this immediately so that we can get you to Florida to be closer to the grandkids? Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's time we do something. So do you think we should now establish the reduction amount? Do you think we should roll the dice and see if a 5 production? So do you think we should roll the dice to see if a 5% adjustment or reduction makes a difference, or play it safe by making an impact with a 10% adjustment so you can get moved to Florida to be closer to the grandkids? Now, I'm throwing in motivation again. Now, note, here's a little note. These percentages may be too high in many circumstances, but sellers are likely to feel much better about a 2.5% adjustment when they are made aware that a 5% reduction is the national average. So if they come back and say, well, wait a minute, 25 grand. Now, keep in mind, I just got through saying that a 1%, 2% adjustment doesn't make much of a difference, and it doesn't. But it depends on my price range as well. But I'm always pushing for a minimum of 5%. But if they say, well, what if we did 2%? I say, well, in my experience, I know that's probably not going to make much of a difference. And so I would recommend we go with the 5% because we are getting the activity. And again, we know the marketing's working because people are coming to see the property. So my marketing's working. They're just rejecting the price. And my job is to get your home to a price that will cause it to sell. And in my experience, and from all of the data we're looking at, I firmly believe that a 5% adjustment will get it done. So I'm going to go back on them and push a little bit to go for my 5%. Now here's another one. I don't want to recommend that you give it away, but we need to make a price adjustment that will cause your home to sell now instead of having to make a larger reduction 60 or 90 days from now. So remember, I work for you, so this must be your decision. So tell me, what are you thinking? Should we adjust by 5, 10, or 15%? So I'm going to let them decide, but I'm going to give them enough data to make an informed decision so they decide what price they want to go to. Now, again, 5% is what I'm shooting for, but if I'm getting low activity, I've got to go for 10%. If I'm only getting 1 or 2 showings, I'm 10% off on price for sure. If no one's coming to see the house, I'm probably 15%. So just keep those numbers in mind. Very, very important. So these are our scripts we're talking through. Now, I want to pull something up real quick and see if I can get this. Okay, this is an example of a seller report we've put together for sellers in the past, and it works well. So this is something that gets sent out to the sellers every week. So again, remember, I went through my slides on what we should include, but here's what we do. A listing scorecard. We're going to show how many days on market. Now, keep in mind, this is getting sent out every 7 days to our sellers. Every 7 days, they're getting a seller report. It's going to show days on market, the day we went active, client possibilities, 2 clients saved it as a favorite. This is in reverse prospecting. My Zillow views, 2,057. My Zillow saves, 111. We've had 17 showings and 100 client matches. So this is a report that we're putting together, and you could use this as an example. Then what I'm going to do too is I'm sending a comp report as well. So I'm sending all my comparables for the area to the seller on a weekly basis. They're seeing this before I'm making the price adjustment conversation with them. And then I'm going to go through this information with them. Here's the property, subject property we have listed. There are no other actives in the area right now. That is to my advantage. All right, look, there are no other actives in the area right now, and still we're not sold. So that's telling us we don't have any other competition, but no one's making offers yet. I'm going to go through the closed properties and see where we're at in relation. I'm going to look at things like price per square foot. Keep in mind, though, when dealing with price per square foot can work on homes like under $1 million. When we start getting to like $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, $5 million homes, price per square foot's out the window. There's too much customization when it comes to those homes. You know, imported things, imported chandeliers, imported marble, things of that nature. So don't use price per square foot when you get into the luxury market, but everything else is fine from a price per square foot perspective. But I'm looking at my cancel or my properties, what's going on in the area. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to start talking through. Now, here's the nice thing too, with Showing Time. Showing Time will pull pretty good reports for you as well. So use Showing Time. Go in and play around with Showing Time. They put really good showing reports together. It's going to show scheduled showings, 10 in the first week, 16 total, 15 days on market. So it's putting all of these showing things together for you. It's going to show how many days on market. The average days for closed listings is 32. So we're still below that right now on this listing. But again, take a look at the Showing Time reports and see what you can do there. It's going to show homes with price adjustments. So I'm going through this data with the client. The other thing I'm looking at too is looking at when we first go to market, like what are my historical views? This is getting pulled from Maris. I'm looking at my hit counters and seeing, well, look, we got tons of activity, and then it starts to fall off. It's starting to wane. So now we need to do something again to get this activity to spike again, which is a price adjustment, which is what I believe we did here. But just some things to keep in mind. And then I'm pulling up the listing activity report, and I'm going through the feedback. So I'm going through the feedback with them and letting them know what's going on, what the feedback's been that we're getting. We're going to review that, and this is helping me in my price adjustment conversations. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, keep in mind too, this listing, I believe, was it canceled? Yeah, so it canceled. Listed at 329 originally, was reduced by that agent to 319. We took it over at 309, sold for 30, or we took it over at 3099, sold for 304. So something to keep in mind there. Putting a seller report together, though, will help you in your conversation with sellers. And if anybody wants a template on this, we can get you a template on it as well, and maybe we'll get a training signed up or lined up too on how we pull this data. How about that? But I find that putting these reports together, we send them to the clients on Mondays. We follow up with a phone call. We have a conversation with them. We give them time to look at it. We call them, and then we just start moving through our scripts, moving through our price adjustment scripts. So going back to this, market updates every 7 days. Have the MLS pulled up. Make sure your market report's sent to them. Go face to face if you're going to lose the listing or it's going to expire. Just keep in mind, though, we are moving we looked yesterday, we're still in under 2 months supply of inventory, which means we're still in a very strong seller's market. As we eventually move into a more balanced market, though, becoming a skilled listing agent is going to be vital. You have to be prepared to have these conversations. You have to be prepared to be able to keep a listing for 6 months. All right, as we move into a balanced market and shift eventually potentially into a buyer's market, you have to have the skill set in place to be able to talk to your clients and have these conversations and get price adjustments to where the house isn't just sitting there, sitting on the market rotting. Because that's what happens to a lot of people. A lot of agent strategies on getting price adjustments is waiting for the seller to call them and initiate the price adjustment conversation. That will happen a lot. Sellers will call me like, hey, what should we do? Should we drop the price? Yeah, I think we should. All right, don't be that agent. Like, be proactive, not reactive. The other thing is, too, having a set practice of calling your clients on a weekly basis will become vital. If you update your clients, and that's what I do too in my presentation when I'm talking to sellers, I say, look, I've got a communication guarantee, and essentially what that is that you're going to hear from me at the very minimum once a week. Oftentimes it's more than that, because as I'm getting feedback and we're getting activity and showings, I'm going to be providing that information to you and updating you. But the minimum, I'm going to call you on a weekly basis and share with you everything I'm doing to get your home sold, as well as the activity we're getting on the homes and the feedback. Does that sound fair? So I'm committing to calling them every week, because in the past, when I was a new agent, here's what I would do. I would list a property, and the property would go on the market, and we'd get some showings, and then I was excited, right? And I'd get some feedback, and I'd call, and then showings the next week, we didn't get any. And I didn't know what to tell the seller, so I didn't call him or her. And then the next week, we didn't get any showings, and I didn't know what to tell the seller, so I didn't call them. And then the next week, I didn't call them. Now I feel dumb because I haven't called them in 3 weeks. And then what happens is the fourth week, I wasn't going to call them either because I was nervous and didn't know what to do. And what happened? They called me. All right, we don't want that to happen. I say in a transaction, in a listing, in a contract transaction, working with the buyers, if the client never has to call you, you've done a fantastic job. So look at your business and your level of service right now. How often do your clients call you asking questions? And if it's a lot, to be honest, you're probably not doing that great of a job keeping them updated. If your clients never have to call you and you're not having issues and things are moving smoothly through closing, that means you've done a fantastic job of keeping them updated, of future pacing what the next steps are, and keeping them up to date. So think about that. Think about the last handful of transactions. How many times did the client call you versus you calling them to update them? And what we want to do is, if right now the client's calling you a ton, asking questions, we want to shift. So we want to add some things into our business where we're giving more updates to our client. Like, think about, this is off subject, but like you put a buyer under contract, updating them on appraisal and title work and inspections and things of that nature, like where they're not calling like, what do we do? Do we have to call the appraiser? What do we do here? Like, put a process in place. So just think about that. Look at your business. How many times on your last transaction did the client call you versus you calling them to update them? And that's what we want. We want a transaction where the client never has to call us because they're always updated. They always know what's going on. It's the same way with a listing. We want listings where the seller never has to call us. We want listings where the seller never has to call us and say, hey, what happened with that showing we had 5 days ago? Did we get any feedback? No, even if I don't have feedback from that showing 5 days ago, I want to be calling that agent, asking for feedback, and I want to be updating my client. Sometimes no update is an update. Hey, the update is I don't have an update yet. I'm still reaching out to the agent trying to get feedback. I can't get a return phone call, text, or email, but I'm going to continue to call. And as soon as I have an update, I'll give you an update. The update is there's no update. I give tons of no update updates. Right? But it's showing my clients that I'm on top of things, and I'm not waiting for them to call me and then I'm saying, oh no, yeah, I called them 3 days ago. I haven't heard anything back. No, I'm going to call every single day until I get some response, and I'm going to keep my clients updated. So I hope this was helpful. We'll get you these scripts. I think these are in our script book. If you haven't looked at our script book, networkglobalagents.com. Go into the Agent Quick Start Guide, and there is a download for the script book. I believe all of these are in there. If not, we'll make sure they are. But hope it was helpful. We will work on, yes. So yeah, thank you, Sherry, Rhonda. Absolutely. Yeah, we will work on getting some templates for this to get sent out to everybody, so you can have templates on the seller report. And that's all I've got for today. Appreciate you all being on. Thank you so much. Again, hey, if you haven't signed up for Network Global Success Conference, that's our business planning, mindset, all kinds of goal setting stuff. It's in October 1st. It's just a couple weeks away. Make sure you sign up for that. I think it's less than 2 weeks away now. So make sure you sign up. Leo, if you don't mind, drop a link in again. But drop a link in if you haven't signed up. That's an in-person event at the St. Louis Association board. We are limited on seats. We're getting very, very close to being maxed out on that. But make sure you sign up. It's October 1st, 9 a.m. I think it'll run until 12:30. And Leo's dropping a link in there. So appreciate everybody. Thanks for being on. We will see you all soon. Also tomorrow, Maris. There's a Maris training with Elizabeth Stodley. Elizabeth. So she's part of Maris. She's doing the last of that training series. Those things have been pretty good. So I've been impressed and I've learned some things. So she's going to be going through Maris training. The last of the series is tomorrow. So make sure we'll get links sent out to everybody on that as well. But appreciate you all being on. I appreciate it. Sherry, you did sign up. Yes. So Sherry, you are signed up for the Success Conference. So no worries. I do know that for a fact. But anybody else that hasn't signed up, please do so. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.